And there is, a couple of little steps that we have to go through on the studio, agreeing to certain things. And so it takes just a minute to get that switch over, but thank you. It looks like at least 6 of you have popped back in, so that's a good thing. And let's see. Woo! Go Mindshifters. Thank you, Ian Day. And so I did see a little button pop up that there was a comment. And so hopefully there'll also be a little button pop up for a caller. And it did. And that is Michael. So I am turning him on. Welcome, Michael.
All right. Thank you, dear heart. Welcome, everybody. Honored and delighted that you're here. And there's actually I'm getting some feedback now. There's actually a call button that has a picture of a telephone on, just a small yellow one on the left. And I hit that and it didn't seem to get in. But down below, there was another button, a green bar. And when I hit that, that's what I got in. So maybe folks need to hit the green bar in order to actually enter the space. So we're in a learning curve. But delighted that you're here and that we get to do the next round of looking into these awesome statements that are practical guidelines for how to live a life as a with their human lives, how to be restored to their human lives, and how to truly live. Okay, let's see. Okay. All right. Well, I switched screens, so that doesn't work. So let me get another phone to do this with. Have another one prepared. It appeared that it was going to work without a second phone, but that's all right. So I am back, and welcome once again. So the objective here is to provide tools with which, if one has been raised in and has a membership card in the One World.
Just lost you again, Michael.
Okay, are we back?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm going to have to keep hitting my screen. I'm not sure how to reset that, because each time that my screen goes out, it loses me. I'm not sure where that setting is, so excuse our practice, folks. We're learning. So the objective here is to provide the tools with which to directly own whatever is in us that is less than love and remove it. And the word that represents the removal of those things that are unlike love from our genes, from our physiology, from our generations, our family systems, our communities, the tool is called forgiveness. How do you access what has been hidden from you, and how?
You're gone again.
I want to live differently than that state of hostility and fear. And so that's our technology. That's what we're working with. And now I'm going to let's see if I can, if you'll give me just a second. I'm going to go into settings and see if I can figure out how to keep this screen on.
Allende said that it's your battery saver setting. And I think because you're off the screen, we can't hear you. Apologies, everyone, but we are learning.
Okay, let's see how that works. Okay, I just hit the battery saver. And it was probably perfect to be off the screen for a second there, because this little guy that I just have sitting in here with me, Lincoln Elias, 4 months out of the wrapper, just finished a bottle and gave me a great big burp in my ear. So everybody would have gotten that burp if the microphone had been on. How perfect. So doing the battery saver did not take care of it. Are you there, Jeannie?
Yes, I had a call come through, and before I could disconnect it, it cut me off and wouldn't let me back in for a second.
Okay. So if you can go ahead and chat for a minute, I'm going to see if I can find the setting.
Okay.
To the screen on.
Okay. So I'm really glad that this seems to be working really well. And
the sound is awesome.
Yeah, it is. Everybody's crystal clear. And hopefully, Allende has written me in the chat room there several times that there's another fix coming out next week, and it'll take care of several of these things. And we do appreciate you and your company and this app and the availability. And so we will, I'm not sure. I know after the show, then I can download the recording, and of course, on your app, you can hear it for 36 hours, but I'll be downloading it and then uploading it to probably YouTube and their Podetize. So we'll let you know how that's going.
All right. I think I found the setting. So let's go back to the work that we're doing with the Book of Thomas and these wisdom sayings that assist in understanding what. Okay, once again, even though I told it to keep the screen on, it's not doing so.
And Allende said that the fix next week would take care of that as well. And if you're talking, Michael, I can't hear you. Are you there? Well, let me walk into the other room and see. I went in and got the baby, and you're not, we can't hear you, Michael.
Again. Okay. So back on, it looks like my screen will only let me set up to 10 minutes of staying on. So we'll see what happens. If it goes out at the 10-minute point, show it at me and I'll go back and reopen it. So again, we're back to the book of Thomas and looking at the sayings, and we're up to saying number 99. And those who are following or speaking with Yeshua offer him the thought, your brethren and your mother are standing outside. And he says to them, those here who do the will of my Father, these are my brethren, these are my mother, these are they who shall enter into that community of love. And in essence, what he's saying here is that you'll remember there's another point in the scriptures where he talks about, I'm in this world, but not of this world. In other words, I'm not following anything that the world dictates that I would do. Rather, I'm standing in this space of my created essence as love. And as love, I source what I'm doing here. And he's pointing out here when he speaks about those who are working with him, those who are using his tools, he's saying, in essence, he's saying a strong community of support is better than all the commitment you can make. You know, again, most of us by the age of 4 are brainwashed into the one world universal religion of guilt, fault, blame, shame, and victimhood. And whenever pain or turmoil moves inside, the mind starts looking for who did it to me and plays the game of it being their responsibility. And that's just listen to the political scene today. And, you know, you can see it in spades so clearly. And we're looking to reverse that so that one is able to see what's going on inside of themselves at the deepest levels. It is not natural for a human being, I would offer, to have an unconscious mind. We only have an unconscious mind because we live in denial. And again, denial is the act of thinking or saying, speaking, as though something outside of me is the cause of what's moving inside of me. So if I come from a long line of deniers, then I have a power person, at least 1, 2, very likely, which is most likely going to be my parents. And what he's saying is that what you want is a strong community of support of people who are moving toward the state of functioning out of the truth of who we are as human beings. Those who are moving in the same direction as you are will carry you farther than you'll ever go on your own. There's a wonderful African proverb that says, if you want to go quickly, go alone. But if you want to go far, go together. And the objective of this radio show, the reason we've been doing this for the last 15 years, an hour to 2 hours a day, 5 days a week, is to have a community of support that anyone who's ready to enter into a conversation about responsibility, anyone who's willing to take on the family dynamics of unresolved grief and sadness and fear and rage and hate and vengeance, anyone who's ready to take that on, that there is that community of support here for staying engaged in the work when it can be easy to fall prey to perception. And as Dr. Tim was saying in the first hour, and it was a great hour, Tim, thank you. As he was saying in that first hour, when you're looking at the constructs of your mind, your perception, you're looking at 9 selected bits of data out of 10,000 units of information moving out of perhaps 20 trillion bits going on in the world. And so what that means, pardon me, is that your mind is an evidential device. And the only evidence your mind can ever give you is evidence of your own BS. That's a belief system, of course. If you've got a different reality for those initials, notice that's your reality, not mine. BS is belief system. And the world teaches us to hold a belief system that somebody else is the problem in my life. And what Yeshua is offering here is that a community of support is much more powerful than even the most resolute commitment to do your work. 1,000 unresolved generations of fear and hostility will destroy the resolve of most who try to make it on their own. And my offering would be, there came a point in doing this work. I was in the business world when I first started to do this work. And after a period of about 6 years of doing this work part-time, I walked away from my businesses and went into doing that back to school and went into doing this full-time. Because what I recognized was I would not uphold the commitment to do the work that I needed to do if I didn't stay engaged in it. And the best way I found to be engaged in it was to teach it. And so, if you find one other interested person and stick with them, then that person will teach you if you choose to be a teacher. If you look in my book, you'll see there are 400 or 500 names of people in the acknowledgments as my teachers. The people who I've worked with are the ones who've nurtured me along this path and supported me in learning it. And for me, it's really clear. And, I developed these tools 50 plus years ago, or started developing them 50 plus years ago. And in terms of my own personal inner process and my own personal inner work, I'm really clear that the deepest, most important work that I've done has been done in just the last 2 or 3 years. A family or a work environment that has no commitment to functioning as the presence of love will tend to tell you you're wasting your time and lead you on a different path. And so community becomes important, and that's the objective of this radio show. That's the objective of our app. That's the objective of our 20,000-page website, is to make the tools available and nurture and support each person who chooses to engage in the work. And then saying 100 in the text, the book of James, the book of Thomas, they showed Yeshua a piece of gold and said to him, "They who belong to Caesar demand tribute from us." He said, "What belongs to Caesar, give to Caesar. And what belongs to the Creator, what belongs to the world of love, give to that world. And what is mine, give to me." So he takes the traditional scriptural quote and adds another piece to it. He says, "What is mine, give to me." And in essence, what he's saying is, do your work. So who do you choose to serve? Dr. Tim, again, in the early part of the show, talked about people who, maybe they're in the business world, they're doing a job, and one day they up and walk away, which is exactly what I did. I mean, literally, I had 3 businesses. I had about 60 employees. I had a Mark III on one side of my driveway. I had an Eldorado on the other. I had homes in 3 different cities. And one morning, I locked the door on all of it and walked away. Who do you choose to serve? If you're a commercial servant, then, support the commerce system that you're engaged in. But if you're in the world of the Creator, if you're there to support people living as human beings, then support what is of that world. If you choose to express His love, then dedicate what you have. And I use the acronym time, intelligence, money, and energy. Tithe of your time. Ultimately, you put 2.4 hours a day of your regular day into doing your inner work. Your intelligence. Yeah, you take a portion of your original intelligence, not mine, not Tim's, not Yeshua's, not somebody else's, but your own original intelligence, and apply it to your process of healing. And the healed state, I would offer, is a state where one returns to the truth of their newborn essence. Everybody agrees that the essence of the newborn is that of love. And when people tap into a time when they held a newborn and realize that essence is love, I always ask the question, so is the newborn loving you, or is the newborn love? And everybody kind of on that question shakes their as is that newborn essence. And then, yes, 10% of your money goes into doing your spiritual work, what supports you. And your energy, your original energy, yes. Put a port, not go work an 18-hour day, come home and say, I think I'll have a nap. I mean, I'll meditate for a little while. No, put the meditation at the front end of your day. If you're going to do forgiveness work, put the forgiveness work at the front end of your day with your full vital energy. And if you dedicate that, then you will extract yourself literally from the very capacity to even be able to generate any form of hostility or fear. And again, that passage, the end of that passage where he says, what is mine? Give it to me. He's saying, you've asked for this work, now do the work. You know, there's that passage I refer to so often where a group of disciples ask him, you know, what do we need to do? And he tells them. And we don't know exactly how many, but at least half of the disciples that were there grumbled and moaned. And as they left, having been told they were going to have to go inside and clean up their own hostility and fear-based mind and family system, half of the disciples said, too hard a saying, who can hear that? And they left. So they'd be the ones he'd be addressing this to. What is mine? Give to me. Do the work. And you'll remember there's a passage where people come to him calling his name, Master, Master. And he's like, who are you trying to kid? Why do you call me Master? You're not doing what I told you to do. In fact, you're telling people that there's nothing they can do, that I'm going to do it all for them. He says, don't come calling my name and pretending you're following me, because you're not. You're an abomination to me. And so taking on and doing the work is of primo importance if you're going to truly live as a human being and pass on the heritage of the capacity, instead of living out of this power person dynamic, of living truly as the active presence of love. And then saying 101. Yeshua says, he who shall not hate his father and mother like me, he who shall not love his father and mother like me, cannot be my disciple. For my mother, my true mother, gave me life. Now, when you translate the Aramaic language into Greek, there are so many mistakes made. And this is one of those passages that just confuse people, because it speaks of hating your mother and your father. And yet there's another place where it says you've got to honor your mother and your father. I mean, what kind of, talk about opposing directives. They're the exact opposite, or so it would seem, until you understand and go to the Aramaic language. And then once you go to the Aramaic language and you translate that word properly, you don't find hate as in a love-hate relationship. Here he's speaking about you are going to have to take responsibility for and separate from the dynamics of hostility or fear that have been passed on to you through your family, your cultural system. So you're going to have to do that work. There is no conflict between that directive and then you hear this again. There are so many words, almost all of the key words in Aramaic, which incidentally is the language of at least 5 of the world's major religions. And not because it's a religious language, it's actually a language of physiology and psychology and physics and genetics. And when you clear up the mistranslations, it all makes sense, and it all becomes, it's not about theology, it's about living where you exist truly as the active presence of love. So the word hate there, and so there are basically the definition of 3 words that need to be cleaned up. One is hate, one is love, and the other is love. Oh, that's only 2 words, Michael. Well, not quite. So again, the word hate in this passage is as in separate yourself from the power person dynamic. And usually the power person dynamic involves a parent. Now, when you think of, if we listen to Einstein, and Einstein says, on such things as matter, we have been all wrong. What we have heretofore called matter is energy whose vibrations have been so lowered as to be perceptible to the senses. There is no matter. Then you realize that we are energetic beings. And as energetic beings, we are designed to be fueled by the active presence of love. And in our codependence work, we identify what we call a power person. And there are 3 things that happen between usually a parent and a child, although it's not absolutely necessary that it be that, but generally speaking, it's a parent and a child. 3 things occur for a power person dynamic to be instilled in the child's mind. The first one is that the power person, the parent, has more power over the child's life than the child themselves has. Is someone wanting to call in? Oh, Jeannie.
We do have a call.
Oh, cool. Okay, let's say hello.
And
We'll put a hold on the
Moses,
power
and
person
welcome.
dynamic.
Oh, okay. You have to press another button.
The green bar down at the bottom.
Well, it said allow Nettle to use your microphone or something.
Right. You got to give permission. Well, hey there, young lady. How are you?
Hey, well, I'm greedy. I wanted to be part of the maiden voyage on here, but
All right.
I do have a testimonial, and I hope it's okay because we had our support group, the one you sometimes come to, Michael.
Right.
And today I was thinking about Lincoln because a young mother called in who has fostered and finally adopted several children, the youngest 2 of which are in severe trauma mode. And the daughter, she's 10 now, she had a baby brother named Ryan, and the parents were on drugs and were getting off of them by using methadone. And Ryan was born with a drug addiction, and he was being treated with methadone, and he was doing okay until he started going downhill and died. He was a very little boy, maybe 3 months old. And the little girl was in charge of him and held him as he was dying, I think, and after he died, she was holding him because the parents were nowhere to be seen. And she was blamed for the death of her brother.
Wow.
I can almost not talk about this because it's so unbelievable. But it turns out that was the final blow. The children were taken away from the parents and put in foster care with my friend. And you met her on the radio show. I mean, on our,
Right.
you know who she is. So
Hmm. Yes.
she said the daughter has been acting out. Particularly, they were making Christmas cookies and gingerbread houses, and she went off with them and ate them all, sickening amount of sugar. And she was acting crazy. Well, the mother figures that this is when Ryan died a year ago.
Right.
And the daughter was probably not aware of that, but was acting out. And here's the mother on our support group saying, I don't know how to reach her. She believes that she was the cause of this baby's death, and they found it wasn't called sudden infant death syndrome. My
Right.
friend thinks that the baby died because the parents were using the baby's methadone, and the baby didn't get what he needed and passed away because his body couldn't make the transition to being both on drugs and then off
Drug free. Right. Yeah.
So the mother said, I don't want to make up a story, but I really think this is probably what happened. And I'm trying to reach my daughter to comfort her, but she's so young, she won't understand science and stuff particularly. And another one of the reason I'm telling you all this is because it's your teaching that have led us to the point where together, if we'd been Michael Ryce, we could have done it as Michael Ryce. But putting heads and hearts together in this meeting, another one of them said, why don't you remind her that she was the one who gave that baby such love and care when the parents really were not around. She was the one who helped feed him, who held him through his dying and after he had died, and the parents were nowhere around. And she was 3 years old at the time. So it wasn't last year, sorry. It was years ago that this happened. She was only 3 when this little brother died. And so the group put their heads together and said, okay, let's just try this. Instead of telling her, no, this isn't your fault, it was because of the drugs, she won't understand that, but she would understand that she gave him the joyful life that he had and helped him thrive. And I thought that was just so gorgeous because basically all along here, they were choosing to be loving and to nurture that child, the little girl, out of her upset about having killed her brother. She still thinks she did it. And so I'm telling you this story, and I'm also asking you if you have anything to add to something the mother and the rest of us could do to help bring this little girl back into being well enough to want to grow up.
Well, one of the things that I've done with a child when a child's been in trauma is to simply get close to them, get them in a relaxed place and breathe in their ear and just get the child to breathe and encourage them to breathe. And if that child will simply breathe through when that trauma is in their face, then literally they'll drain the emotional energy of the trauma out of their bodies.
That's a great idea.
So that would be one of the things that I would suggest. And then as she grows, to just be continuously vigilant for every time this dynamic is going to come up, and teach her or assist her by modeling breathing, that she can breathe through these states rather than try to anesthetize herself. And as she grows in intellectual maturity, then, can hand her more and more of the tools.
Yeah.
But when someone's in a state where they can't cognitively deal with something, you know, I've been taking people into the still point breathing process for over 4 decades, and I've never seen anything that if an individual won't breathe into it, that the breath won't resolve.
Mm.
So that would
Yeah,
be
right.
the most important tool that I would offer.
Right. She's anesthetizing herself using sugar now. So
Right. Yeah.
it's wonderful to have actually to make the even exchange of saying, instead of you eating this, how about we sit together and breathe? Because that's how it manifests, is stealing other kids' candy. And this family is huge and they do Christmas big. So there's a lot of
Right.
sweets around. Yeah, that's a wonderful idea.
And maybe she's inviting the family to let go of this addiction.
Yeah. Right. Mm-hmm.
And it's awesome that you're there as support.
Well, and this was Kim who had the love idea. We all had little inputs, but Kim's going through a lot, and yet she could settle in and apply what you teach the best of all of us, the clearest, which was great. We were talking about how Diederik Walzak says, give up the story. And I was thinking, what do you do with a story that isn't even verbal in a child that just has a belief that she did her brother in?
Right.
But your answer to about the breathing is probably the best way to pry it loose. And maybe the story can find its way into the wastebasket, permanent cosmic wastebasket forever.
Yes.
That way.
Yeah, it is the master. What happens when people breathe is, my take is, you know, in the ancient teachings, when they said the veil of the temple must be rent in twain, they were not talking about a purple curtain in the church. They were talking about the barrier between the subconscious and the unconscious mind, the barrier or the veil that holds those energetic patterns in tissue.
Yeah.
And therefore maintains those pain states. Opening the veil allows that energy to be liberated and removed. And as I say, I mean, I've walked hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people in all kinds of different states through major trauma. And I've never seen a trauma that it won't dissolve if people will simply breathe.
I'll call Naomi and tell her, because she probably could. She said at the end of our meeting that she felt empowered, as if she had some tool or some way that she could approach her daughter. She was really at a loss. So I'm going to call her and add this to that.
Yeah.
Thing.
And she might want to notice what she's doing with her breath when she's facing that, because she's probably restricting her breath as well. Yeah. And as she breathes, she will literally energetically be an open space for her daughter's healing.
Nice. Okay. Thank you. Is Allende the creator of this app?
He is, yes.
Well, when he called in, it was just graciously said to Dr. Tim, "Oh, I'm loving this." He didn't fess up to the fact that he was the needle guy.
Yeah, he's the man who created the app, and he's been so gracious and so helpful. We've had a couple of meetings with him personally, and
wonderful.
It's just been awesome support. So looking forward to this app being the...
Oh, that's great. Well, Michael,
He's got his hand up.
Oh, yeah?
Oh, well, let's say hello.
Okay. Susan, I'm going to have to mute you because we have found out that if we have two mics on at the same time, it kind of echoes.
That's fine. I finished. I'll listen.
Okay. Great. Hi, Andy, you're in.
Hey there, sir. You had a thought for us, Andy? Is Andy's microphone open, Jeannie?
Yes.
Well, perhaps he didn't really have his hand up. You're gone, Jeannie. Jeannie, I can hear you. I can hear you in the other room. And again, everybody excuse our challenges here, but I can hear you in the other room, but I can't hear you through the app, honey.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yeah, you're there now.
Okay. I'm not sure what happened, but it shows that he is on. So he's in as a caller, just like you are. So, Allende, we can't hear you. And I'm not sure what happened, but it was like the studio shut down and I got a notice that said clear cache. So I don't know what that means. But anyway, I'm back in here and it shows that his microphone's on. So, Allende, if you're there, I'm not sure what to do.
Okay. Well, let's go on back to the show. And perhaps if he puts his hand down and puts it back up again, we'll try again. In any event, it's nice that he's checking out what we're doing and offering support in this whole process being successful and operating. It's kind of strange each time, Jeannie, that your microphone's open and I speak. We're getting feedback, even though you're in another room. So it's coming through the app, I guess. I don't know. In any event, let's go back to where we were. Let's just check in with Susan. And Susan, was there anything else for you to share? And we'll certainly be extending our hearts and our love to that whole family. So I'm going to go back to our Book of Thomas conversation. We were just getting into the power person dynamic. And so this idea of hating mother and father is in essence saying separate yourself from, deal with the power person dynamic in you. And the power person dynamic, as I started to say, is something that's instilled in a person's mind when three things occur. And again, it's usually in early childhood. The power person has more power over the child's life than the child has. The power person is not functioning out of love in that moment. And the child perceives the situation as survival. When those three things occur simultaneously, the child, when you think of their physiology as an energy system, their energy system opens. All of the sensors, all of the blocks go, and they're just like a wide open sponge, literally taking every frequency, every energy in the environment and bringing it into themselves. Once that happens, for the rest of that person's life, until that power person dynamic is resolved, their behaviors will be controlled by that power person dynamic. And there will only be three behaviors possible. Literally, I mean, for the rest of that person's life. And my offering is, this is what runs the world. I don't care whether it's business, church, community center, government, whatever it is. If people haven't resolved the power person dynamic, then they're limited to three behaviors. And the level of stress that they're under is determines which behavior is active of the three. When there's little or no stress, one will do whatever it is they did to get along with their power person. When stress starts to build, they'll shift. It will seem like a whole personality change happens, and all of a sudden this person will shift into doing whatever it is they did to resist and survive with their power person. And then if they become ultra stressed, they will do whatever it is that their power person did to them that they hated the most. And that runs the world. I remember we were in Fort Lauderdale back a few years ago, and we were invited to do a presentation for an AA group. There was a gentleman there who ran one of the world's largest online AA groups. And so we did a Why Is This Happening to Me Again workshop, and then followed up with the codependence workshop. And at the end of the workshop, this man came to me, and he was in a little bit of upset, and telling me about how my thesis about the power person was just totally and completely wrong. He had been sober for some 35 years, again, ran some very large support groups in the AA program. And what he shared with me, as he told me I was totally and completely wrong, was that as a child, he had been severely abused by his alcoholic father. And that he had a child, and that he had never touched nor hit his child. And he was kind of like, pushy about that idea. Until I asked him the question. First of all, I offered him a compliment. Great. So you had sufficient willpower to refrain from engaging in that power person dynamic with your son. But how much time do you still spend today trying to control your fists? And at that moment, I could have knocked him over with a feather a moment before he was ready to, bowl me over. But I could have knocked him over with a feather, because it was like, oh my God, that's my challenge every day, to refrain from hitting somebody. Exactly what his power person did to him. And that dynamic comes into play when one is ultra stressed, and you are absolutely safe. Now, it may not be safe to do so because of the violence some people do, but you will be right on track if you watch someone who's ultra stressed and the behavior that they do, to ask them. Now, be careful, because, you may be playing John the Baptist, and they may want to take your head off, but to ask them, how did it feel when your power person did that to you? And if a person's honest, and if a person is willing to breathe, they'll go back and they'll start to process that power person dynamic. So what Yeshua is saying here is you've got to separate from that. And when you step in and heal that power person dynamic, then you are, in the context of this statement, hate separated from the power person dynamic that came from your power person as you do your work. And then the second word we want to clarify is honor. Now, we hear this phrase, which was never said by the Aramaic Yeshua, though if he sat in most places where they talk about him today, he'd say that's all Greek to me, where it said, love your neighbor. He never said love your neighbor. He said have rachma for your neighbor. And there's no such concept in our English language as rachma. There isn't a word for this state, but it is a filter and a gateway in the frontal lobes of the brain that keeps the mind on track with love, and is the energetic space through which your human created essence, love, your newborn essence, enters into your human form. So he didn't say, when they said, what's most important in the law, he didn't say love God, love neighbor, love self. He said honor the creator. Pardon me. He said have rachma for the creator, have rachma for your neighbor, and by so doing, you will maintain your human life. In other words, the gateway will be open, and you will have your human life available to you. So once you've got the brain cells to recognize that this love and hate, both of these words have been misinterpreted in this context. And then where it doesn't appear as clear in this statement 101 from the book of Thomas, about loving your mother and your father, in that one passage, he clarifies and he uses the word honor. And honor, for everybody in the world, having Rachma is the requirement. In other words, that's how you maintain your human life in the presence of stress and strain and pain and trauma. But then when he used the word honor in that passage for parents, in that, or where the commandments say, honor thy father and thy mother, in Aramaic, the word honor means to bring behavior from your human beingness, love, into activity toward your parent. And this is not something that you're doing for the parent. This is something that brings you into a healed state yourself, because love is literally, love and breath are the master solvents for all trauma. If you hold a power person dynamic, in the presence of the person involved, mother or father, that power person dynamic is resonating. The last thing most people want to do in that state is behave from love toward that person, because they don't realize that if they behave from love toward that person, the very pain and trauma that's resonating in them by the presence of their power person is now exposed to active love and begins dissolution. It's how one heals oneself. So love is a noun. It's a state of being. When you function from love, you qualify as human. Love is not a verb. It's not something you can do. It's used in this errant way. And when it's used as I love you, you'll notice how quickly love can turn to hate and what has to happen for that to happen, to occur. All somebody has to do is violate a goal. Notice that unless you're just a generally miserable person, you're pretty happy with everybody you interact with if they're fulfilling all the goals you hold for them. And notice that when hostility or fear comes into the picture is when someone is not fulfilling a goal that you hold for them. That's why goals are the key way into Yeshua's teaching on forgiveness. When Tim talked about that 10,000 brain cells firing and 9 bits of data going into perception, obviously something must determine which 9 bits of data you get to see in any given circumstance. What is it that determines that? Your goal. So if there are 10,000 measurable units of electrical activity happening and you hold a goal, let's say that you've come up in a world, let's say somewhat like the little girl that Susan was talking about earlier that feels she's to blame. Then when under stress, the tendency will be to exhibit blame towards self. And she'll hold a goal for others to always see her as innocent. And if someone comes toward her with blame, that will tend to resonate anything that's unresolved about that early experience. And in the Aramaic language, the word forgive is shabag, and the word shabag means to cancel. And if she cancels that goal to be seen as innocent by everyone, then that goal, when loaded in the mind, will tend to take one back to that place of blame. When canceled, all of the unresolved pain from that early experience begins to dissolve. We're exposed to it. So if I have a perceptual reality of blame occupying my 9-bit mind, and I look at the goal that I hold, and that is to be seen as innocent, and I cancel the goal to be innocent, well, many people would say, well, Michael, that's silly. Why would I? That's a perfectly good goal. Why would I cancel my goal to be seen as innocent? Because I've recognized that every time I load that goal in my mind, it accesses my feelings of guilt and self-blame. And by canceling that goal, I collapse that projection of self-blame. I get to, when that projection, when that picture, when that construct in my mind collapses, I get to see the underlying hidden part of my own mind, and I get to get free of it. I get to bring conscious, active, present love and breath, the master solvents, into the part of me that holds that hidden pain of being to blame. So I cancel the goal because I don't deserve to be seen as innocent. I don't cancel the goal because I don't want to be seen as innocent. I cancel the goal because I recognize that if I load the goal for innocence in my mind, it resonates with my pain. And by canceling it, I get to collapse that projection of pain, and I get to drop directly into the hidden part of my own mind. And when I bring love to the hidden part of my own mind, dissolution occurs. When I bring breath to the hidden parts of my own mind, because love and breath are the master solvents and the master healers, I just have to get the hidden part of my mind, bring it to a space where it's available. And by canceling the goal, that's exactly what I do. And so as I breathe and as I cancel that goal, I free myself from what underlies it.
Michael?
Yes, sweetie.
Allende had written a note to Susan back when she was talking about the little child, and he said that he did some work on his end there, and he said what he thinks that Naomi should say to the child is, quote, "You are free from this," unquote.
Powerful.
Yeah.
We'll hold the breath, this space for her to be able to hear that and to really truly be deeply freed of it, and even to reach back beyond her own structure into the genetic structure, what was going on for parents that they're into that heavy a drug use, that they would abandon a child, and the family dynamics that tend to go on. And so I'll hold the space, and thank you for that input, Andy, of freeing the whole family system from that guilt and that self-blame. Powerful. And breathing. And so we're down to the last minute or two. So how about we just join in taking a deep breath. Close your eyes for a moment, if you would, and just breathe deeply into your structure. Feel through every cell of your structure the tingle of your breath entering that cell. And along with that breath, feel the warmth of active present love entering deeply into your structure. Let every cell just open to receive that sweet breath and that sweet presence of love. And we thank you and appreciate you for joining us, and hold the space for you to have the best year yet of your eternal life. Thanks and blessings. Bye-bye.